Look at these two lines. If you don't see them, I'm going to highlight them. You got 2 points and then right here. So that's the first line. And then you should see it on the right there. They kind of look like dumbbells. These are called segments. It says find the length of each of the segments below. Tell your neighbor how you think you're going to do that. So on this first one, I'm going to go from top to the bottom and see how far that line travels along the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. I'm not counting the lines. I'm counting the amount of squares it traveled from point to point. 7. So that line has a length of 7. Would you please work with your partner and figure out the length of the next one? So it traveled from one point to another. It went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. That's it. So if it's on a graph, things aren't going to look a whole lot different. We're going to first thing, draw a right triangle. With the line between the 2 points as a hypotenuse. Woohoo! Is count distance on the legs, just like we did up top. It's going to be horizontal and vertical lines because they're the legs and they touch the right angle. And then you're going to solve for the hypotenuse. Thing we do on our directions, it says to draw a right triangle, making the line between the 2 points the hypotenuse. So we want this green line to be the hypotenuse. Because slanted, we're going to make a right triangle out of that. So I'm going to go to the left. So starting at one of the points, we got to go straight because our legs are connected to the right angle. You could go up, it doesn't matter, but you want to follow a line. You want to follow the line on the grid. And then you're going to stop right where it's lined up with the other point. And then we're going to draw a line up to make a right triangle. There's something missing in this picture. What is it? It's got the 2 legs, it's got the hypotenuse. What's it missing, Elise? Yeah, get your right angle in there. You could do it in a different color. That makes sense, I hope, because it's a square, and you've got a bunch of squares, so you got a right angle. So let's do the horizontal one first. We're going from the left blue point to the right blue point. We're counting how many squares it travels between those 2 points. So let's do it. You can say it with me. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, no, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thanks for doing it with me, guys. That was great. Okay, so that's my favorite mistake because we're not counting how many full squares. I don't really care if it's a full square or not. I'm asking how many squares did it travel? If you're going from this bottom point to the top, how many squares did it move? So let's look at it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It moved 6 squares. I understand that this top square is like a little half square. Doesn't matter. I'm figuring out the length of this side, and it's traveled 6 squares, so the length is 6. That's the most common mistake that I see is students are like, oh, well, the length is 5, the length is 4, because that's not full. Doesn't matter. That's not what I'm asking. And use our 2 legs of the triangle now to find the hypotenuse. We always start by writing Pythagorean theorem so we don't mess it up, because that would just be silly if we did, because we didn't write it down. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to solve it the same way. Draw an arrow across from your right angle, because that's going to give you c. I'm just going to call it c today. You could label it x if you want. We are solving for c on all of these grid ones. So 6 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. Y'all, what's 6 squared? 36. 6 times 6. So we're just going to adjust that. 36 plus 36 equals c squared, which is 72 equals c squared. Class, what's the opposite of squared? Thank you. You're not done until that little 2 is gone. So the square root of 72, you would type that in your calculator, second x squared. Do that. 8.5 is approximately C. That is your answer. That is how long that slanted line is, which is quite a bit longer than 6 because it's going through the squares and not on the lines. Okay, next one. I'm going to help you set it up and I'm going to let you solve it on your own. First thing we do, make a right triangle. So I go from this top point and I'm going to go down until I'm going to stop right when I get lined up with the other point. And then you're going to go over. And you're going to make a right angle. And we're going to count the side lengths, distance traveled from the top to the bottom and from left to right. What's my distance traveled on my vertical line, guys? Count it if you're not sure. 1, 2, 3. You should count it regardless every time to make sure you don't make a silly mistake. And then on the bottom it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You cannot just count out the squares. You can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 8 squares, Miss Brandt. No. You're going through the squares. You cannot count them up. So for the hypotenuse on these ones, we always have to solve. So I need you to now solve for the hypotenuse. Oh shoot, we gotta hurry up. Is that right? Do we seriously get the same thing?